Rick. Rick, a young man, takes care of his sick mother, making sure she eats and takes her medicine. One day, he finds her holding a gun, mumbling Bible verses. Her behavior is strange and disturbing. But before he can do anything, she says sorry and shoots herself. I'm sorry. 3 years later, Rick tries to rebuild his life. He looks for construction work, only to discover his old job is gone. Desperate, he asks his friend Jeremy, who gets him a position despite showing up late. While working, Rick hurts himself and sees a woman in the garden, Annette. He politely asks for a first aid kit, but she says no. You got nothing inside I can use? After explaining he just needs to clean the cut to keep working, she finally agrees. As he tends to his wound, a servant whispers something to Annette, and she quickly tells Rick to leave. However, on his way out, he notices a room with money sitting on the table. Tempted by his financial struggles, he sneaks in and takes one bill. But before he can escape, an old man, George Drayton, supposedly the mansion's owner, catches him. Who are you? Soon, Annette shows up, angry, and fires him immediately, promising to make sure he never finds work again. Rick begs, admitting his error, explaining he was robbed that morning and needed train fare home. To his surprise, Mr. Drayton forgives him and gives him the entire pile of money as advance payment. Warning, nothing screams suspicious deal like a rich old man casually giving away stacks of cash with no conditions attached, right? That night, Rick moves in with Jeremy, who asks what he'd do if he had billions. Rick imagines luxury, expensive meals, and getting back together with his ex, Tanya. Jeremy laughs, calling Rick a failure who never completes anything, which explains his current broke situation. You got to stop starting stuff you can't finish. The next day, Rick and Jeremy talk about their work site's purpose, but Annette interrupts, calling Rick to see Mr. Drayton. The old man reveals he regrets having no family to leave his fortune to. He then asks if Rick is religious. Rick admits he used to be. Drayton, once without faith, now holds onto religion in his final days. Then he makes a disturbing offer, let's get down to it. If Rick eats a meal made from his dead body, he'll inherit everything. Rick, horrified, assumes it's a joke, but Drayton is serious. One meal, unlimited wealth. Okay, so is this an extreme diet plan for the super rich, or has this guy watched too many horror films? Rick refuses anyway, but Drayton insists Rick is the right person for this responsibility. This is a genuine offer. That night, Rick comes back to find Jeremy hosting a party. Tanya is there, but before they can speak, Jeremy arrives and mocks Rick's failures. What the hell have you been up to? Living the dream? Later, Tanya says she never expected Rick to remain after his mother's death. Suddenly, Jeremy causes a drunk scene. The outburst is harsh and humiliating for Rick. Get out of here, dude. Are you serious? You ungrateful piece of trash. After that, Rick sits in his room, devastated, staring at his gun, thinking about the worst. Instead, he puts it down and breaks down crying. The next morning, he desperately cold calls for jobs. Nothing. Then a knock at the door. Yeah, I know. The man hands Rick an envelope and tells him that his presence is needed at the mansion. Inside the envelope is an invitation and a suit for the occasion. The man says he will be waiting for him outside in the car and shows a much more respectful attitude that makes Jeremy suspicious. Soon, Rick arrives at Mr. Drayton's mansion, where Annette tells him Mr. Drayton died earlier that day. She hands him a contract, explaining that if Rick eats a meal prepared from Mr. Drayton's body, he will inherit all of his wealth. Of course, you become heir to Drayton's fortune. However, he must eat every single bite, and no one outside the estate can ever find out, or he will lose everything. Rick struggles with the choice but agrees after a long pause. Soon, a meal is served with plates placed on Mr. Drayton's body. Shortly, Rick forces himself to eat dish after dish until the final portions are placed directly on Mr. Drayton's chest, with Annette reminding him he must finish everything, every last crumb. And somehow, Rick does. When he's finished, Annette gives him a card with Mr. Drayton's final words. It is necessary to complete the meal. It states that Rick takes on all of Drayton's burdens and offers his own soul in return. You carry, and I upon my own soul. Without thinking clearly, Rick signs the contract and leaves. But it's clear he is already starting to feel sick. Soon after, Rick returns home and collapses into bed, exhausted. But when he closes his eyes, he finds himself underwater, surrounded by terrifying demonic creatures. He screams in fear as the vision overwhelms him. Be careful what you wish for and who you pledge your loyalty to. The next morning, Rick wakes up and notices a man staring at him in the hallway of the house. When their eyes meet, the man runs away. Rick chases him but is stopped by Annette, who acts like nothing strange is happening. She tells him that the mansion is now his and that he can fire or hire staff as he wishes. Rick declines, unsure of what to do with his new life. Annette gives him an unlimited credit card and encourages him to enjoy his wealth rather than worry about its consequences. You could buy a lot of nice things with that. Later, Rick goes to Jeremy's apartment to collect his belongings. He tries to give Jeremy some money, but Jeremy refuses, saying he'll manage things on his own. Tanya sees Rick and asks if he won the lottery. Rick says it's something even better. She asks if he's really okay, and Rick insists he is. This isn't about me and Jeremy hooking up. He then suggests they go out like they used to, but Tanya hesitates and says she can't because Jeremy is waiting for her. Jeremy's waiting on me. Later, Rick visits a club and orders a rare whiskey. A man sitting nearby mocks him, suggesting Rick doesn't belong there and questioning how he dares to order whiskey. In response, Rick orders 2 bottles of the expensive whiskey, one for himself and one for the man. I'll take 2 of those, pal. When Rick returns home, he starts drinking but suddenly sees a woman appear in front of him. He touches his face and realizes his nose is bleeding. Before he can react, the woman disappears, then reappears and attacks him, screaming and blaming him for what happened to her. Why did you do this? Suddenly, Rick finds himself underwater again, struggling to breathe. He wakes up drenched and terrified, lying on the floor. Panicked, he immediately runs downstairs to find Annette and seek answers. He accuses Annette of drugging him and describes a soaking wet woman who attacked him and dragged him underwater. Annette stays calm and tells him to relax, but Rick demands answers. What was that thing I had to read at the end of the meal? He then asks about the statement he read after the meal. Without hesitation, Annette hands it to him. As Rick reads it again, everything begins to make sense, and a deep dread consumes him as he realizes the seriousness of what he has done. Is that even possible? When Rick asks if what's happening to him is even possible, Annette explains that before Mr. Drayton died, he became obsessed with strange religious rituals to escape what he believed was his fate, hell. What fate? Hell. Soon, Rick discovers a book about an old practice where families hired someone, usually a peasant, to eat a meal off a dead body, possibly a family member, transferring the dead person's sins to the eater. These people were called sin eaters. Rick realizes this is what he has become. Am I a sin eater? Annette confirms it and explains that immense wealth always comes at a cost, and this is the price Rick agreed to pay when eating off Drayton's dead body. Common sense kicks in, and Rick panics, saying he needs to fix this. No, I got to fix this. I got to fix this. Without waiting for a response, he rushes out of the house, ignoring Annette's pleas to calm down. Desperate for redemption, Rick goes to a church for confession. He admits he knows he has sinned but doesn't even understand his sins. You're seeking absolution? Yeah. The priest tells him he must first acknowledge his wrongs before he can be forgiven. Without that, absolution isn't possible. Frustrated, Rick returns home and questions the servants about Mr. Drayton. However, they all avoid him, refusing to speak. You know anything about Drayton hurting somebody? Honestly, at this point, Rick probably wishes he could fire all of them and hire people who actually answer his questions. Finally, he demands answers from Annette, threatening her job if she doesn't tell him everything. Annette calmly gives Rick documents, Mr. Drayton's coroner report, crime scene photos, police records, and a taped confession. Rick learns that Mr. Drayton was suspected of murdering his wife, Susan, who had been having an affair. Mr. Drayton always claimed innocence, but Rick realizes the woman who attacked him was Susan's spirit. You sit right there. Shortly after, Rick goes back to the church and confesses, saying he killed Susan. The priest asks why he did it, but Rick, overwhelmed, says he doesn't know. He only regrets everything. As the priest prays, Susan's vengeful spirit reappears and tries to strangle Rick. But luckily, the priest's prayers drive her away, and Rick is delivered. Good thing holy prayers work faster than Rick's decision-making skills. The next day, Tanya calls Rick, worried about Jeremy. She says Jeremy has been acting paranoid and distant, and she asks Rick to talk to him before it's too late. That night, Rick notices a dark figure standing silently near his couch. Suddenly, a lamp crashes to the floor. Following a rope lying on the ground, Rick freezes in fear when he sees a man wearing a mask nearby. The masked man moves toward Rick, who stumbles upstairs in terror, searching for Annette. Instead, a ghostly child appears. Just as Rick panics, Annette walks in calmly, asking if he called for her. Rick tries to explain but finds himself speechless. Annette then reveals a shocking truth: Mr. Drayton wasn't born wealthy. He had also been a sin-eater, which is how he first gained his fortune. Sin-eaters inherit the sins of their clients, taking on all the crimes and evil deeds of the dead. Annette tells Rick that everything he is experiencing, the haunting visions, is the result of those sins. She warns him that this torment will never end. He saw the same things you did. Annette explains that over time, Mr. Drayton became consumed by the burden. He lived in constant fear, haunted by the same visions Rick now endures. Eventually, Mr. Drayton couldn't take it anymore and ended his own life, knowing his sins would be passed to Rick. Rick asks how he can get rid of the sins. Annette says the only way is to pass them on to someone else willing to take his place. If he doesn't, he will carry the sins until his death, and his suffering will continue even after that, likely to be tortured for all eternity. She advises him to enjoy his wealth while he can and offers him pills to help him cope. Rick refuses, saying she can't help him. He then goes back to the church again to find some peace, but the priest refuses to let him in. Even the priest is like, "Nope, not my problem, buddy. Go home, kid. Please, come on." That night, Rick, unable to sleep, finally gives in and takes the pills. As he lies in bed, he sees a ghostly figure standing nearby. It disappears and reappears moments later, looming over him. Rick panics, falls out of bed, his mouth foaming. Just then, Annette enters, but Rick is no longer fully conscious. He hears his mother's voice and sees her standing before him. Right here. As Rick moves toward the figure of his mother, Dr. Kildare revives him. Later, Rick tells Annette he wants to try something new. Annette, though skeptical, agrees to help, admitting that even Mr. Drayton never considered this idea. She asks Rick if he's truly ready to let go of everything. "Are you sure you're willing to let all this go?" He is ready. However, he hesitates when she asks if he has someone in mind to pass the sins to. He then asks if Annette would take them instead. He suggests this could free her from her current life, giving her control for once. Annette hesitates, saying her contract might not allow it. Rick insists, saying he can't do this alone. So that's it then. Soon, Annette suggests Jeremy as the next sin-eater, but Rick refuses, saying he can't do that to someone he's known his whole life. Annette explains she means someone desperate, capable of theft and violence. Suddenly, Rick sees a ghost behind her and grows more frantic, insisting Jeremy cannot be the one. "Trust me." Just then, Jeremy calls, panicked, saying he's in trouble with dangerous people and needs money. Rick rushes to his house with cash. The place is a wreck, and Rick grabs his gun in case anything goes wrong. But soon, he sees a ghost begging for help and fires in panic. "Help! Help!" However, when he looks again, he realizes he has shot Tanya. Shocked, he stares at her lifeless body. Shortly, Rick's driver comes in and manages to pull him away from the crime scene, taking him home. Annette reassures him everything will be handled. This will all be taken care of. Exhausted, Rick says he just wants it all to end, and Annette tells him he knows what he must do for peace. Rick decides to pass the curse to Jeremy and calls him over. Jeremy arrives, distraught, saying Tanya is dead. He blames himself, believing he could have saved her.
Hopeless, Jeremy asks to work for Rick. "I can help you with whatever, anything."
Annette then reveals the truth. Rick wants Jeremy to become his sin eater.
Jeremy must eat a meal from Rick's dead body to inherit his wealth. Shocked, Jeremy asks if Rick is dying. Annette explains Rick has chosen this. Life isn't for him, and he believes Jeremy can handle the burden.
Shortly, Rick lies on a table as Dr. Kildare prepares the ritual.
Annette reassures him it will work. It's going to work.
Soon, Kildare administers a lethal injection, stopping Rick's heart. In another world, Rick wakes up and sees ghosts pleading for help and his mother in the distance.
As he approaches, she transforms into Tanya.
They apologize to each other before Tanya vanishes before his eyes.
Shortly, the ghosts turn on Rick, but his mother's spirit drives them away. Then Rick gasps awake. Annette confirms Jeremy completed the ritual, recited the prayer, and has taken over Rick's life. He's already begun giving orders.
Indeed, Rick realizes the ghosts are gone, and Annette confirms his freedom.
Annette says Jeremy has embraced his new role and hopes Rick will do the same.
6 months later, Rick works as a construction worker, far from his old life.
Meanwhile, Annette writes Jeremy's name in a book of past sin eaters.
However, at the mansion, Jeremy is haunted by the same ghosts that tormented Rick. Annette hears his terrified screams echo through the halls, her eyes glowing eerily, suggesting even more sin eaters to come in this mansion. Rick is also at the construction site, taking a lunch break in a park under a tree.
But he isn't alone. Tanya's ghost sits silently beside him.
But it's obvious that he hasn't repented for killing her and seems unbothered by her ghostly presence.
Please subscribe and turn on notifications for more videos like this. Thanks.